recording on this computer.
Mhm.
Okay. Hey, Donna.
Hey, how are you
So
doing?
good. So you want me
Oh,
to tell you about being Black?
well, introduce yourself for me.
Oh, okay. So,
And
hey,
tell me a little bit about yourself first.
sure. So my name's Diana Bando, and I went to college with your husband. And
Hmm.
uh, time flies, but I remember like the first memory I have of David is him showing up pissed off one day because some kid called one of your girls baby. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not the calling them baby, it's like what he said. I got out of the car and I lifted up that kid by his backpack. And I was like, you can't lift up white people's kids by the backpack. Like, and he said, what? I can't, what are the twins' names?
Hannah and Allison.
Hannah. He's like, you will call her Hannah or you will call her Miss McNeely. Do you understand? And I was like, this guy's crazy. We should be friends. So that's
Yeah.
how. um, but yeah, so my experience is unique ish. It's like everyone's experience is unique in that I'm first generation American, grew up in predominantly white areas, and then um started making black friends in my like late teens and early 20s after I finished high school. And so I had the experience of, you know, having one culture at home. And when I was at home, America was like that thing that happened outside. But like at
Mm.
home, the food wasn't American, the music wasn't in English, like the, it was like America's out there. And then in here, it's like our own little, you know, other universe. And then, I'd go to school and I was like the only black girl. And also I didn't have parents that were from America. And so people would say things to me, assuming that I was African American, but I'd have no frame of reference for what they were talking about. And I go home and ask my parents about things that people said at school, and they wouldn't know either because they came to America for college. And what year? It would have been like 70s, but like
Uh-huh.
they came from countries that like didn't teach American history. So
Yeah.
like slavery, civil rights movement, like they didn't, like my mom is from Nigeria, my dad's from Ghana. Like they don't study America over there. Like
Yeah.
what? Like why? And then, I go out into the world, finish high school, and I start making African American friends and would constantly have these experiences where they'd be like, well, your parents didn't tell you about this. Well, your parents didn't make you watch this movie. Well, your parents didn't. I'm like, no, we didn't watch The Color Purple. Like, no, I didn't see Roots. Like, no, like, and so I had to like learn what it was to be black in America, but I didn't really get to start learning until I was in my 20s and made a lot of mistakes, pissed people off. Um, and because of that, I feel like I have a unique level of empathy for white people that most people, black people don't have, because I had the experience that I think a lot of white people really need. And the only reason it was as safe for me to have it is because I am black. So like there are things that I said that like if a white person said it, it'd be like, oh my God. Like, and for me, like it was still offensive for me to say it, but because I was black, it was like, well, she's black. So, um, and yeah, I'll tell you more in a minute, but I'm just giving you kind of a backstory about like why my experience is different. Um, but also like, there are a lot of times where I just thought I knew and didn't appreciate the fact that like everything I knew was from the lens of growing up in a very affluent, white, privileged space where I didn't even think about black people because like
Mm.
I didn't see them, and so now I interact with a lot of white people because America is, legally integrated, but it's still a very segregated country. And, a lot of black people don't have any friends who aren't black, and a lot of white people only hang out with white people. And, I'm also like my mom's bestie from college is Puerto Rican. So I have a gay Puerto Rican uncle who's now an Episcopal priest, like whole another story for another day. But I'm like, there's a very big part of my heart and my soul that like identifies as Latina, even though it's not in my blood. Like I speak Spanish, I taught salsa in college, and so and there's Afro Latinos, and because of the slave trade and whatever, like they're from the same parts of Africa as my family, and so like some of the music and the rhythms and the different things, I'm like, oh, that's like from my culture, but I'm the first
Uh-huh.
person on either side of the family to be born in the United States. So like there's a lot of like intersectionality. And then and my mom, like, especially when I was younger, she's like, I think you're going to marry like a Latino man because you just love that culture so much. And um, but even like blackness in that in Spanish speaking cultures is like totally different than blackness in American culture. And
Mhm.
there's racism there too, but it's different. Anyway, so I'll give you a story and then I'll start from the beginning. So in uh high school, I went to four high schools because my parents kept like getting separated and getting back together, and then they got divorced. And when they got divorced, my dad moved back to Africa and my mom moved to Texas. And so high school
Mhm.
number four was McKinney High School in Texas, coming from Massachusetts, which is where I grew up. And my sophomore year of high school, a Black girl moved to our town. I grew up in a town called Winchester, Massachusetts. I'm like, if you cannot tell by the name that there weren't Black people there, Winchester, like there was like literally a town hall where like all the kids took chess lessons. There was a boat club, like, and
Uh-huh.
so a group in Winchester, and this Black girl moves to our town when I was a sophomore. I think she was my age. And I was so excited that there was somebody else Black. In hindsight, I can tell like I just was being a creep, but I was just excited. I wanted her to be my friend. So I was like, oh my God, can we hang out? Can we get lunch? Can we get coffee? Can we like just super like, and so I just think I
Yeah.
freaked her out, because I was being so
Uh-huh.
like, and but anyway, eventually I wore her down and she agreed to hang out with me. um, and we like went to her house. I think we were getting high. Like I was a little pot smoker in high school. And she said something about like, oh my gosh, I've never seen so many white people use drugs. And, you know, first generation American, the only Black people I know are my parents' African friends. They all went to Ivy League schools. They're all, they're also like not trying to get deported. So they're not messing around with drugs. So I didn't even have any like frame of reference of like other Black people using drugs. So I was like, what are you talking about? The only people who use drugs are white people. And this was in 1999. Like,
Uh-huh.
you know, like the whole crack thing had happened, you know? And um but I genuinely believed that only white people did drugs because that was my frame of reference. And I say that to say like that's ignorance, right? Like when you think because it's all you've seen, and you're not appreciating the fact that like there's a lot you haven't seen. It hasn't even
Yeah.
crossed your mind. I was just like, what do you mean Black people do drugs? She's like, what do you mean Black people do drugs? Like, what? But I didn't know. So,
Yeah.
anyway, so grew up on the East Coast. Parents came to America for college. They went to Harvard. And the first place we lived was a town called Belmont, also super white. And I went to a very expensive private kindergarten, Belmont Montessori, or maybe it was Lexington Montessori. Either way, um, it was super expensive. And I would come home in tears pretty much every day, begging my mom to make me white so the kids would play with me. And
Oh,
so my first experience of racism was like when I was 4 or 5, you know,
yeah.
and it's funny now because like as an adult people are like, oh, you don't know, you've never dealt with racism, and I'm like, I've literally been dealing with it since I was a child. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I do have privilege, and yes, like, there are a lot of advantages I have. I have advantages over a lot of white people, but like, racism is for sure something I've been dealing with since the beginning. Like,
So I'm sorry, do they think that because you come from a place of, higher, your parents are educated, that you just don't experience these things?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So like um my I think it was my second year of law school. I'm in Uptown in Dallas with my the girl that was my best friend, white, went to ASU. She was a Chi Omega. I never asked her, but I just assumed I was like her first and probably only Black friend, and we're both in our late 20s at the time. And a car full of white guys who, I thought they looked younger than me. Um, I think they were in high school, and only because I just don't. I think someone older would be too embarrassed to do this in public. But anyway, we're walking back to her apartment, and they roll down the windows and scream "fuck you, nigger," and like I'm the only Black person in sight. So like there's it's not like, oh, was it someone else? And and so what's memorable to me about it is like by the point I got to my second year of law school, like being called a nigger in broad daylight by a white guy or a bunch of white guys, like it wasn't triggering. Like I would have forgotten that it happened if I wasn't with her. Like it just was like,
Mhm.
okay, water's wet. Like a white guy called me a nigger, like whatever. And um and it happened without me doing anything to provoke it because they had to roll down their windows to shout. Like if they
Yeah.
left the windows up, I would never have known. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but my friend who's, I mean, very unemotional, might be on the spectrum because she's like, she got hysterical and was like screaming and crying and like hugging me and like and I was like confused because I was like, I know you know that word. But it didn't occur to me that like that would have been the first time in her life that she would have heard that word used in reference to someone she cared about, you
Mhm.
know? Um, but I was like just like so confused and my knee-jerk reaction was, a guy who'll call me a nigger in broad daylight would also probably rape me in private if given the opportunity. So
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
I thought like I just want to like get to your place as quickly as possible so that like if they circle back, I mean there's three of them, like they could pull me in the car and take me wherever. And so I just like my only thought was just like I just got to get out of here. Like if I was alone, I probably would have like run to my car and driven off. But we were almost at her place. And anyway, I just started to get mad because I was like, doesn't she know that we have to get out of here? Doesn't she know that like it's not safe to just stand here? And but I couldn't understand why I was angry. So I went to the professor at the law school who taught critical race theory, which,
Uh-huh.
of course, we don't need critical race theory in America because we don't have any race problems here. And I went to my critical race theory professor and told her about what happened. And I was like, I'm really mad at my friend, but I don't even know like what to say to her or like how to explain why I'm upset. And she said, so I told her the whole story. And she goes, the thing that you don't appreciate, and this goes back to like ignorance, the theme for today, the thing that you don't appreciate is that it was happening to her too, but for her it was the first time.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I'm like, so like my first time getting called a nigger was in high school. I had just moved to Texas. I'm at Whataburger and i'm I'm with a group of guys and girls, and it's an all white group and me. And I'm like 16. We're all there eating our little Whataburgers, fries, whatever. Some white guy walks up to the group and like tells me to kiss him. Like not even like doesn't flirt, doesn't ask my name, doesn't like small talk, just like tells me to kiss him. And then when I said no, one, I don't know where your mouth has been. Two, ew, like who are you? Three, like I'm literally eating a hamburger right now. Like
Yeah.
that's not, calls me a nigger. And so in that instance, it was memorable because the group of white friends said nothing, and I didn't expect them to. So it's like I have this experience where it's like, yeah, of course they're not gonna, like, what I would expect just based on my experiences is for like one or two people after the fact to like come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't say anything. And I actually wrote about this on LinkedIn in the last couple of months. It's like, it sucks when that happens because then you as the minority are put in a position of like having to comfort the person that came to you instead of being like, well, you're a fucking coward, just so you know. Like if someone comes to
Yeah.
you after not standing up, I'm so sorry I didn't say anything. It's like you've already been victimized by the thing that was said, that they could have stood up for you but didn't. And now, if you don't comfort them for like not standing up for you, you're a jerk,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah.
and, um, and a lot of times, like I've heard it, like white people, like, oh, racism doesn't exist anymore. That's not real. It's like, how do you know? Like, what due diligence are you doing to confirm these things that you just think are true? For me, like I
Mhm.
have the privilege of like having these experiences where like I thought black people didn't do drugs as of 1999. Like like so I know that like just because I think it, like if I haven't looked into it, I could be wrong. I could be super wrong. Um and but I just think that that is something that a lot of white people, because currently, they're the majority, think they know. And it's like, but you haven't even done any homework. Like how would you know if you haven't explored? And so that's why, like in therapy, because I'm a huge fan of therapy, I say that, therapists are like the home builder and life coaches are like the interior decorator. Like for me to do my job as a coach, the therapist job has to be done first. And I don't deal with mental health. um I'm not going to deal with like chronic addictions. Like I can help people who are struggling with addiction, but if you've been like using meth off and on for 20 years, or if you were like, yeah, a certified like a sex, I'm like, I'm sending you to a CSAT. I'm gonna like, like I'm not trying to deal with major foundational things. Like I want people that are fully baked, that are trying to like take it to the next level, not people who are trying to get family of origin trauma sorted out and processed. Um, so I'm saying that to say I have a lot of respect for therapy and therapists. With that said, I do hesitate to send minorities to white therapists. And I will say, like, try and find somebody, depending on what the issue is. There's certain issues where it's like, if you're having problems at work, but there's certain issues that like somebody who believes that the tree made a sound when it fell in the forest is probably not going to be white. And um so I love that you've been given this assignment where you just have to listen, because I just feel like there's a lot of therapists who are practicing now who could have really benefited from something like this when they were training. There's more I could say, but I don't know if you want, and I think you're frozen. Oh no, does that mean I'm frozen for you? Well, it looks like it's still recording. Well, it's a good thing that I'm recording because then you'll still get to see this. Um, oh Donna. Hmm. Well, let's see if I can get you in the chat. Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
I was like, it's a good thing that I'm recording because like you could just listen to what I said in the replay when you
Okay.
get it. So
Yeah,
that,
because
yeah.
they're doing construction all around my neighborhood and the internet keeps going in and out. I don't know what they're
Gosh.
doing.
Um, okay,
So
just tell me what the last thing you heard was.
um they were they didn't stand up for you.
Mhm.
and having to go and like, you know, you call them in your head, you call them a coward, but that's kind of like
Oh
for
yeah. So
us.
so you know, it's like between like the first time getting called a nigger and then that high school experience. I mean, there have been multiple other times where different things had happened in groups where everyone's white and like someone says something crazy, everyone sees it, no one says anything. And then after the fact, someone comes to me basically seeking like they'll come like apologizing for not speaking up and saying like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so bad," and and it's like I just got like like traumatized, and now you're coming to me for comfort, or
Yeah,
like I'm supposed to like make you feel better about saying that because like that's the expectation. It's like, oh, I didn't stand up for you as the minority. You're expected to be like, it's okay, I understand. It's like if you feel bad, just feel bad. Just just feel bad. Just eat it. Like, don't come to me and make me like have to comfort you or, have to choose between like comforting you or being a jerk for not appreciating the fact that you came to me to tell me that you felt bad. I don't know if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So
In that situation, is there anything that they could have said to you?
that's a really interesting question that I don't know the answer to. Um, so I mean, I guess saying like, I'm not expecting you to comfort me and I'm not expecting you to tell me it's okay. Um, but just for what it's worth, I'm acknowledging that I'm a coward for saying not speaking up, you
Yeah,
know. And I mean, I get it. Like, why would you want to put yourself in the way of fire if you could just say nothing and not? But the other side is like because you're consenting to like what was just done, if you aren't. And it's,
yeah.
often in like professional spaces. I was sexually harassed at the job that I had while going to UTD for years. And the guy that was doing it was, white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and it was a family owned company, very conservative. Like, I mean, I'm not there now. I left in 2011, but I mean, for sure would have had Trump in the offices fundraising,
Mhm.
and I mean, this was one of their guys, right? Like, and everybody loved him. The distributors loved him, but he was like literally like basically demanding sex from me. And it's not that he was actually handsome. I just wasn't attracted to him. Like I know, like
Yeah.
he's tall in shape, but I just thought he was stupid. And I don't. My dick doesn't get hard for dumb. Okay, like I need a man with brains.
Yes, I
So
understand.
anyway, like would like shut him down, but it's really weird to be like, I've got to shut you down respectfully, but you're disrespecting me and like looking down my shirt and talking about my butt and like and like you couldn't get away with this in a strip club. Like a stripper would at least ask you for some money, like but you're wanting me to just like do stuff that like even a prostitute wouldn't do for free. Like anyway, and I don't want you. But he basically threatened to rape me. And I got scared. And so I told one of my friends, and my friend told me to go to legal. And so I went to the general counsel, told her what had been happening. And she asked me to write a statement, like documenting everything. And one of the things I said in the statement is that I've been complaining to my managers for 2 years, which was true. And
Mhm.
um, managers happen to be white. No big deal. Just coincidence, I'm sure, whatever. But so he gets fired immediately. And, I end up going to law school a couple of years later, learning about a hostile work environment, realizing if I had chosen to sue the company, I would have won. Like, no doubt. Like, multiple complaints to management, multiple promises that they were going to do something. Nothing was done. His behavior kept escalating. I kept raising my hand. They kept putting me in situations where I had to work physically close to him, and like in spaces where like he could say things to me and there'd be no other witnesses, even though I kept complaining. And, I do feel like race was a factor. Like, oh, this is
Mhm.
just some little black girl, and she should just be grateful to have a job, and it can't be that bad. He's a good-looking guy. Maybe she's got a crush on him, and he shut her down. Like, I don't know what the thought process was, but I just don't feel like it was taken seriously. And I do wonder if it had been a black guy and a white girl, like
Yeah.
would they have reacted the same way? Or would the managers have like handled it? You
Do
know.
you think he targeted you because of your race in that office?
So I think he was just someone who was a low class person.
Okay.
And I think when people don't have class, they don't appreciate that there's a way that you behave at work and when you're not at work. And
Mhm.
so I'm not fully convinced that like he wouldn't have done the same thing to a white girl. Um, I do wonder if he would have expected for there to be some type of consequence if she expressed that she wasn't interested. Like I do wonder if he thought, oh, you're black, I can like say whatever to you. Like no one's gonna stand up for you here, you know.
Do
Uh,
you think he thought his handsomeness protected him, his charm protected him?
Everyone loved him, like
Yeah.
except me. But it was a multi-level marketing company that I worked for. The distributors freaking loved him. The people in the corporate office, who we were in customer service, and when you're customer service, you're down here and the corporate's up here. So the big wigs, loved. So I just I don't know how much was like race and charm and how much was like he was loved and he was one of them and he was in, and
Mhm.
you know I wasn't.
Yeah.
So you know
Yeah.
hindsight, it was before the Me Too movement. um
Yeah.
but like also like the managers I reported to were women. And
Oh.
yeah, and I do think that they're both married. One's I actually like officiated a wedding for one of the women in 2022. And I know, time. So they're both married, unhappily married. And like now that I'm in my oh my God, I'm about to turn 40. I was in my 20s, early 20s. But I do think that they were probably like, I wish I could get sexually harassed by a guy that looks like that. Like to them, it was
Oh,
like, you know,
it was like
'cause,
a
like,
joke.
yeah, there's a joke about like the difference between like sexual harassment is like, how interested she is in the guy or something. So I think that they
Yeah.
might have been like, I wish he would tell him to come over here with some of that, like, um,
Yeah.
and they kept saying, we're going to say something to him. I have no clue what they said, if anything, if they were like trying to bend and snap and like, I don't know. But um, I've just always,
I've
mm,
I've come to realize women that say things like that have never actually been sexually harassed.
yes, yes,
Because once you felt it, you don't want that for anyone.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. There's a saying about how like, um, it's like people will only judge like when they talk about like sugar babies or trophy wives, it's like only people who've never had an offer are gonna, you know, judge you for accepting one. Um and yeah, like I would be stunned if either of them had ever been sexually harassed by someone who looked like him, because he's the type of guy that like blonde hair, blue eyes, in shape, 6'2", like he's handsome. I'm just not like I've just never been about looks. Like I care about money, but not looks. Like you can be ugly, just be rich. And so
And intelligent.
yeah. Well, I mean, you can be rich and dumb if you're generous. Otherwise, yeah, you gotta be smart. Because like if you're rich and generous and dumb, like we just don't have to talk very much. It's fine. You can talk to your friends. Just give me the credit card. I'll be off with my friends at the spa with my phone
Yeah.
off. So don't call me. So, um, yeah, so uh I I said some stuff that I think you had dropped off, but just, you know, I do think that this experience of just like having to listen to someone talk about their story is so valuable because it's like we don't know what we don't know. And even like,
Mhm.
you've come over before and like we ordered Uber Eats, but like we didn't have this conversation.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
think a lot of people are afraid just to have the conversation, just to talk about it and be
yeah,
open about it.
yeah.
And I've never shied away from it. It's just you don't want to be discourteous to somebody or trigger them in some way or say something because, I know that I have a lot of ignorance when it comes to that, but I also do have my own experiences with racism. It's very limited, but and it really changed how I viewed the world at a very young age.
Are you Latina?
Yeah, I'm half.
Okay. So was it
Uh-huh.
like people thinking that you were white and saying crazy things, or was it
Oh, yeah. Well, I my maiden name was Gonzalez.
okay?
I went to a predominantly white school, but I was the resident wetback.
Oh God.
I was this yeah, I was one of four people of color. Look at me. I'm one of four people of color.
Like which color? Which shade
Yeah,
of ivory? Like,
yeah. So they would call me wetback, they would call me spick, and my really good friend Maurice was a little black boy that I loved. I just loved him. He played soccer so good. That was like my favorite thing to do. So we'd play soccer all day long. I didn't know what these words were. I didn't know what they were calling me.
well, and so sorry, is your dad Gonzalez? So your dad is,
Yeah.
yeah, which I'm like, women are the ones who carry culture. So I'm like, if your dad is Gonzalez, you're white. Like if your mom was Gonzalez, you're Latina. But like, I mean, because
No, no,
there's
but
it's like,
I grew up with my dad's family.
oh, okay,
They're here. I don't know my mom's family. They're in Virginia.
okay,
I talk to them every once in a while. I grew up with all of my
okay,
cousins
okay, okay, okay. So you got the
and my aunts
culture.
and
Did you have a
uncles.
quince?
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh?
Did you have a quinceanera?
Yeah. No, no, I did not.
Okay.
My dad, well, my dad's a whole story. My
Mine
dad
too. I don't
married a
talk to
white
them.
woman. Yeah, my dad married a white woman because white is right.
Oh Lord.
Yeah,
Well, have you
yeah.
heard the phrase limpieza del sangre? Does that mean anything to you?
Uh,
It's, like Latin, South American racism is something, woo. And there's a phrase, limpieza del sangre, which means, for the people watching this recording who don't speak Spanish, cleanliness of the blood, meaning um, less indigenous and more Spain. So the
yeah.
indigenous blood is sucio, and like the Spanish blood is limpio. So
Mhm.
limpieza de sangre. So like whiteness, because Spanish people are white.
Yeah.
One second. One second. Hey, can you hear
Are
me?
we running long?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I'm on Zoom right now. Are you heading to the gym?
I am. I've got to get out of here.
Okay. Well,
So,
I think we'll be done in like 10-ish minutes, and I'll meet you at Equinox.
okay, I'll see you because it takes me about 20 minutes to get down there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, all right, cool.
Bye.
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 So that person that just called is a friend of mine who's half Mexican, half white, and I call him a gringotino because like if we're in certain spaces, he'll be like, "Yeah, my name's Mike," and I'm like, "Okay, Mike," like, but Spanish, and he's I'm like you're, but like we like deviating. So he was like telling me about his ex-wife and mentioned that she was racist, and I was like, you married a racist white woman? I'm so disgusted. Like, why? Because anyway, he was younger, but I'm like, I just anyway, like the obsession with whiteness in certain pockets of Latin culture is crazy. But
Yeah.
it's also like I just feel like anywhere that Europeans colonized, there's racism.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because my dad's family they're very light skinned. And so I think my dad grew up with a lot of self-hate because his father hated him. So
Oh,
it just transferred to, white is right. And then my parents divorced and he went and married a Chinese woman. So it's my dad's a whole story.
yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up being until like I want to say junior high, high school, one of the few people of color. And I've always looked like this. I've always been this pale.
Yeah.
It's I never understood it. Like my dad's family didn't teach us Spanish.
Okay.
Like none of my cousins grew up knowing Spanish because we needed to fit in. My grandmother was very drilled that into us. We need to fit in.
Yeah. So there was in like the 60s, um, there's like the Chicano movement, but there were different things that happened in America within kind of the Mexican American community. And in certain pockets, there was this belief that like to give your kids a better life, you needed to
Yes.
distance them as much as possible from
Yes.
everything that wasn't American. Don't teach them Spanish. Give them the whitest name possible. Like, just have them assimilate as much as possible, which is really, really sad. I didn't know anything about Mexican culture till I moved to Texas, but there's so much richness in Mexican culture. And Mexico, like, easily could be, 3, 4, 5 countries, because there's so many differences and regions and the indigenous tribes that were whatever and but there's just so much to be proud of, you know um in
Yeah.
in being Mexican. And I just think it's really sad that it's pretty common for people to not. So I have a jewelry line and I will mail my orders. And I was at the post office the other night and there's this couple that comes in and they don't speak any English. And there's this guy that looks Latino, and I'm sure he was, but like one of the people behind like the post office workers was like, "Oh, hey, can you translate for them?" And he was like, "I don't speak Spanish." And I was like, "I can help," like, and they were looking at me like, "You?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, yeah, what do you need to tell him?" Like, and but I mean, it was like my thing is like, generally speaking, I'm not gonna speak Spanish unless I'm drinking. Okay. I'm I'm too worried about like saying something wrong. But if there was like an older couple or like, people like if they're
Yeah.
like looking 60 plus, they're not trying to learn English. And
Yeah.
so, I have no problem like helping them, if I can. I was in line anyway, not going anywhere. So, but it just was like just funny because this guy, I mean, he looked like he's something South American, and he's like Spanish. He and what was funny because it's a guy, like he like tried, but was like you know, and kind of like, well, I know what they're saying, but I don't know how to tell them what to say. Just like,
Yeah. Yeah, we would always get a kick out. My dad doesn't looks very Hispanic, doesn't speak a lick of Spanish, but he would always try, and he'd just make up the weirdest words, and we'd just be looking at him like, I know that's not right. Like I can tell that that's not right.
yeah,
And yeah, it was kind of a unique experience growing up for me, but I saw it as an outsider in the white culture and, the people of color. I saw it all.
mm,
And like the pivotal moment for me was he was my best friend. Maurice was my best friend. And we were in the third grade, and one of the students called him the N word. And just was like, I knew that word because I'd heard it. I didn't know what to say. Like, I'd never heard it used on towards a person.
mm-hmm,
My uncles would use it like in conversation,
right,
but never towards a person. And I knew it was a bad word.
yeah.
So
Which at
when
least
one
because some parents don't even tell their kids it's a bad word. It's like,
well, I only inferred that from what they said, and I was like, I'm not that I avoid confrontation. I've always avoided confrontation, and
I'm
so
like,
when they said
with
it,
with that youngest child you have, you avoid confrontation? Because I'm like,
not anymore.
okay,
But
okay,
back then, I was
you've
very shy. I
evolved.
was a very shy person. I avoided confrontation. So when he was called names, the first time I saw it, I was just like,
Yeah,
"What?" Like when they called me wetback, I didn't know what it meant.
I would
I
be
really didn't know
like,
what it meant.
sometimes I'm like, I wish like the 40-year-old version of me could go back to elementary school. I would be in the principal's office every day
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm so fuck around and find out at this stage of my
yeah.
life. I'm like, say it again, say it again.
Well, and it's like when it happened again and I was with him, I was like, "You're not gonna treat him that way. You're not gonna talk to him that way. That's not right." And I started screaming for the teacher. And he was just like, he was very chill and he was like, "It's okay. You don't have to worry about it." And I'm like, "Don't let people treat you this way." And I'm like,
Yeah, but like as a black person, I'm like,
"Yeah."
I mean, that's
He
just
was and
Chris
he
Rock.
said,
Mhm.
"People call me it all the time." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's not right. That's not right."
Chris Rock in his alimony tour, after his wife left him for being a pornography addict and a cheater. So that's what he called the tour. He's like, this is for alimony money. Um, but he talked about like if you have a black son and you love him, in order to prepare him for the world, you should punch him in the face every day. And like the way
Yeah.
he said it was really funny, but it was like, yeah. I mean, my dad, with a degree from Harvard, went back to Africa after he got divorced because he just did not care for the black man experience in this country.
Yeah.
Like he was like, don't want to do it. Just,
Yeah.
kids, you can come, you can stay, but I'm leaving. Like, and I just so I struggle with not being when I'm with Africans, I'm too American. When I'm with African Americans, I'm not black enough. I sound white. Whatever. I'm like, my voice is my voice. Okay. It's my voice. I don't, whatever. Like, I'm not white. I'm never, for a second, when I'm with white people, I'm obviously not white, but like the way I grew up, that like that's, you gravitate towards who you have things in common with, right? So I grew up in Winchester and Belmont and like went to Plymouth Plantation every fall as a child to see where the Pilgrims grew up. I had chess lessons, horse riding lessons, ballet lessons, tennis lessons, like swimming lessons. Like that was my piano lessons. Like who does that sound like? And so there's like not a nice, neat, like this is the group. And then, like from ballet, I made friends with this girl named Christina. And when I stopped doing ballet at 23, she'd gotten into ballroom and then salsa. And then through her, I got started getting into salsa dancing. So I'm like, but I'm not Latina, but I like love the food and the culture and the music and the parties and just the norms and the dichos. Like there's like so many like shady ass expressions that are so perfect, like that each country, there's Mexican ones, there's Puerto Rican ones, there's Spanish ones, there's Colombian. I mean, like just savage sayings. Like in Puerto Rico, there's a saying, la que mona es mona se queda aunque se viste de seda, which means a monkey is still a monkey, even if it's dressed in silk.
Mhm.
Like, just like money can't buy you class. Like they could just say money can't buy you class, but they've got to like make it spicy,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and and obviously African culture, there's a lot to love too. But yeah, there's not a nice, neat box. And then here's I think where I was going with this. So Africans don't like African Americans because they think that they're disgraceful. African culture, there's a lot of value on education, on family, on respectability, marriage. If for some reason a girl gets pregnant, her dad and uncles and brother, like they go to the guy and to his father kick his ass, and then there's a marriage. Yes, there's no like wedlock babies, like, you know, kids and bad baby daddies, like none of that.
Yeah.
Zero. I mean, I'm sure like now it's becoming more common, but it was just like, no, like, I mean, I was told like growing up, like, you do not publicly associate with men. If he's not family, like, we will beat you if you're seen outside with a man. Like, so
Mhm.
it's like, there's just so much, just a lot of just dignity, respect, like for your family, for yourself, for your body as a woman. Like, you just don't, you know, I constantly like, African women don't do that. African women don't go outside without earrings. African women don't, like, there's just a lot of don'ts. And
Yeah.
in African American culture, because of, I mean, generational trauma, the institution of slavery, welfare, like incentivizing, you know, like leaving, not having a, I mean, all these different things, like the lack of access to education. I mean, there's just so many ways that the United States government has implemented policies that, if you are someone with an understanding of psychology and trauma and epigenetics and neuroscience and the human nervous system, it's like, yeah, of course, African American culture looks the way it does. Like, it's been like a Molotov cocktail of like lynching and uh, Jim Crow, and, you know, the whole Brown versus Board of Education. And then even when there was like Ruby Bridges had to be escorted by federal, like, and she's still alive,
Mhm.
you know, like she's
Yeah.
like on Instagram, like she's in
Yeah.
her 60s. Like, it was not that long ago that people were doing sit-ins and, you know, just wanting to be able to go to the same restaurant. And like, that wears down the psyche, you know, where, and like, when people lose a sense of worthiness, like, you know, like what follows next is usually bad, you know, because when people
Mhm.
don't feel like a baseline level of human dignity, worthiness, like, then it's like, well, why try? You know, what is there to strive for? Why not just live off the system? And so there's just like a brokenness of spirit that most Africans don't appreciate because they haven't learned American history, because it's not taught in Africa. Like, why would it be
Yeah.
taught? It's a former British colony. Like, why is it like, my grandmother, who I'm named after, Diana, grew up while colonization was still happening, you know, so like,
Mhm.
British colonies are not teaching American history. Like, you know, like, why would they teach the history of a country that's now the most powerful country on earth that's a former colony? It's not taught. So
Yeah.
Africans, they come here not knowing what's happened. They see other Black people and they're like, oh my God, like, this is a mess. Like, this is embarrassing. So Africans dislike African Americans because they think they're disgraceful. African Americans don't like Africans. And, you know, like, I personally think it's just like a shame based dislike,
Mhm.
um, because there's a lot of present shame about the past legacy of slavery. And an example is like, well, first of all, Brown versus Board of Education. So, equal access to education, what does that mean? It means for the first time in American history, all Black people have access to a high school education. So, there are people my age whose parents were the first in their family to go to high school, because
Mhm.
some places didn't have a Black high school. And if they didn't have a Black high school, Black kids didn't get a high school. So, people my age, I'm turning 40 in 3 weeks, parents first to get high school education. So when I was in law school, a lot of the African American students were the first in their family to go to college. And
Mhm.
that was in the 2000s, you know, like
Yeah.
10 years ago. I graduated 10 years ago. Like that, like the needle has not moved. I mean, it's just 10 years ago that there are people who were first in the family to go to college because of the United States government's policies, you know?
Yeah.
And so anyway, one of my girlfriends was saying that her family, because everyone was doing 23andMe and COVID, everyone wanted to know like 23andMe. Well, if you are a Black person in this country, your 23andMe will end at a deed of sale.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and because like slaves are property. So, and it's not going to be like multiple deeds of sale. It's going to be just like whatever the most recent one was.
Mhm.
Like, why would they track that? It's like, do you track like the dollar bills that you have access to? No.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, you know,
That's powerful. And that hits hard. And I think as I've seen as white people, you don't appreciate that. You don't understand that going back and tracking your family history and then seeing that's heavy. That's
yeah,
really heavy.
yeah, I'm getting chills even, but yeah. So, I mean, I just, the word of the day is ignorance. And I'm like, just that, it's like, what would if you knew that the furthest back you could go, even though your family's been in this country for hundreds of years, the furthest back you could go is a deed of sale from the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what would that do to your sense of self-worth and
Yeah.
beliefs about what you actually mean to this country and you know desire for reparations and like so
Your own personal identity as to who you are. I mean, that's that's a really heavy and a lot.
yeah,
I honestly, I'm trying to imagine how I would feel, and it's just,
it's hard.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like I joke all the time. I'm like, I have a vivid imagination, but I can't picture that. Like, because
yeah.
for me, it's like I'm the first person to be born in the United States on either side of the bloodline. So I know exactly where to go because most of my family is in Africa, like,
Mhm.
so I'm like, I go to the airport in Accra. If I want to see my dad's family. I go to the airport in Lagos, see my mom's family. Like, I know where they are.
Yeah,
And
you're tied to your culture.
mhm,
You're tied to your culture of origin.
yeah.
So that comforting to know that you can.
Well, yes and no. Like, so, to add another level, so Africa, the lines were made by the colonizers, the British, not the tribes, right? And so things are different from country to country. And my parents are from neighboring countries, but they're two very different countries. And funny enough, they don't like each other. So um in my dad's country, bloodlines are traced through the woman. And in my
Mm,
mom's country, the bloodlines are traced through the man. So in my dad's country, I'm Nigerian because my mother's Nigerian. And in my
mhm.
mom's country, I'm Ghanaian because my father is Ghanaian. So it's like there's comfort in the sense of like I know, but then there's also like more of the whole identity thing. Like I'm neither to either country. I'm not Ghanaian in Ghana. I'm not Nigerian in Nigeria. Um, and so like not Black, not African American, not white, not Ghanaian, not Nigerian. So I just feel like there's a lot of things that I'm not, that are,
Mm.
which I think makes me kind of a unique person for talk about race. But yeah, I mean, I would when I agreed to do this, it's like I really hope that I can say something that like is helpful and thought provoking, and so there's
This
like
is really insightful. It's
okay.
really insightful, and I think you're a really unique person because you're a life coach,
Mhm.
and so you're in this world. You know the language. You know how this all operates. I do have a question because of my situation and who I am. I know that there's a lot of ignorance for me that I am working to get past. But when you go see a therapist or a counselor, what is it that you need from them? Do you look for someone who's African American
So I
or
mean, at this point, like it's funny. My ex is LPC master's level, and he's like, you should just do, like, at this point, everything. Like, you just take the test, you'd pass it. Like, um, so I don't like, I just need you to understand the basic principles of psychology. Like, at this, like, because I still will see a therapist every now and then for different as things are coming up. But like turning 40, I have so many big feelings about my upcoming 40th. So I booked a session to talk about that. I decided to end my relationship with my father like in the last 6 months. So I booked a session to talk about that. So like it's more like as things are coming up. Um, so I'm just giving that caveat. So if someone's like new to therapy, they don't know the basics of just boundaries and like I'm like just go to anyone and anyone's better than no one. But if they're dealing with things that have racial nuances, the likelihood that a white therapist will gaslight them is so high that,
Really?
I'll like find someone black. Because, like, again, it's like the whole like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it make a sound? Like, if you are like me in 1999 thinking only white people do drugs, and like someone black comes to you with a drug problem, like, how much are you gonna like really believe them when they're like, I just grew up in this environment where everyone's doing drugs? It's like, no, you didn't. Like, only white people do drugs. Like, um, but higher level, like one of the principles of coaching, counseling, conducting a session that I um really at this point I think I'm pretty good at, um, and one that I kind of like shove down my clients' throats too, is just approaching with curiosity. So it's not about
Mhm.
race, it's about how curious is this counseling professional? How willing are they to ask questions when they see that they may be making an assumption or hearing something that doesn't? Because we all have, our cognitive dissonance, reticular activating system that seeks for confirmation bias. Like, and so to the extent that somebody's aware of that as they're going to a session, then it doesn't matter what race they are. And, there's nuance because like there's racial stuff and then there are people who are full of shit, and so it's like sometimes it's a race thing, sometimes you're full of shit. And parsing between like what's the bullshit, what's actually race, like can be really nuanced. Like, is it because you're black or is it because you're lazy? Or is it because you're both? Like, is it because you're a woman or is it because you were taking like way more bathroom breaks and longer lunches than everyone else? Like, I don't know. Like, so you know what I mean? Like, so sometimes the issue is race.
Mhm.
Sometimes the issue has nothing to do with race. Sometimes the person has victim consciousness and they'll take anything because part of their identity is rooted in being a victim. And so, but like if a white person tells them, they're like, oh, you don't understand because you're not. And if a black person tells them, it's like, oh, well, maybe you're right. So I'm like, there's just so many, it's not, I don't think it's just as simple as like, I look for someone black, I look for someone white. I think, there are clients who like, they just want to spend some money and complain. That's all they want to do. They're not trying to change,
Mhm.
they're trying to listen. They're not trying to, like, okay, like one of my, as an example, I am a very staunch believer in celibacy. And I'm super unapologetic about it. And I know it's like very countercultural, but the reason that I am such a pro celibacy advocate is because I understand neuroscience. And when people have sex, especially women, their bodies release oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, noradrenaline. I mean, all these different super powerful hormones that are designed
Yes.
to help you pair bond. And
Yes.
that's a beautiful thing. But like, if you are having sex with multiple people, your ability to pair bond is compromised, which makes it harder to do things like stay married because
Mhm.
men have been motherfuckers like the whole time, like the whole, like, and I think that's why God, nature, universe, source energy, infinite intelligence, I don't care what label, I don't get hung up on labels. designed women to like have this very powerful sexually induced bond so that when he's showing his whole asshole, like you want to thug it out and try and make it work. And I don't know if I was a divorce attorney for a little bit. Women are leading divorce. I mean, like we file like 70 to 80% of the divorces. It's in my opinion, it's because of casual sex and like the effect that it's had on our ability to pair bond. Because I don't think that this batch of men is so much worse. I think our ability to pair bond is so much worse. And
Mhm.
in addition to our compromised ability to pair bond, we have more money. So like you can't pair bond as well, and you've got the money to say fuck you. What do you think is going to happen to the divorce rate? Like, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
and so when people are like, it's society, I'm like, it's casual sex. But like, if you say, stop having sex, even like literally yesterday in a session, I was with someone for 3 hours, and her partner is a sex addict, and have you done any work with sex addiction?
We haven't gotten there. I'm only halfway through the program, so I haven't gotten there yet.
Well,
I'm
you're
very
in for a
interested in it though.
treat. Okay, buckle up and pack 2 lunches because, like, sex addicts, love addict, woo! And she doesn't even know. So I'm like, you should, check out some books by Patrick Carnes, Facing the Shadow, and just, mm. But I was like, okay, if a friend came to you and told you what you just told me, what would your advice be? She's like, I would tell them to run. I was like, exactly. Exactly. And the reason you're not running is because of these hormones I'm telling you about that are impairing your decision making.
Uh-huh.
The only reason you're not running. So, I'm like, I know that not everybody wants to be celibate, but I'm like, ugh, at least wait until you know for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure that you're going to marry this person before you start doing all that. I don't even know how I got onto this topic. There was something race related. And I'm like, celibacy. But I'm like, people look at me like I have 85 heads. And then when I'm like, it's driving the divorce rate, it's like, oh,
I can totally see that, especially now with the whole uh OnlyFans and Sugar Baby and all of that. It's just, yeah, all these women, and I sex working their way through things.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
which I'm actually like, I don't have a problem with sex work. Like if you're making it just transactional, like my issue is it's really not moral or religious or I am a Christian, but like it's not that. It's about just the scientific, like this is how we are wired and have been for thousands of years. And anytime like you have a behavior that like is contradictory to human evolution, like the effects are going to be bad.
yeah.
And I mean, divorce is like when you are in a marriage and you want out, like it just seems like mirage in the desert. But divorce is to be avoided at all costs. It's terrible. I've been a divorce attorney. My mom has been divorced 3 times. I've, of course, had friends who are divorced. I'm like, I know more about divorce than I wish I did. And it's terrible. I mean, it's it's terrible. And as a bad marriage can be terrible too, but divorce is, I mean, it undermines your sense of identity. Of course, like the massive pair bonding is severed. All of like the dreams and hopes for the future have to be aborted. And it's like going through a death, but I
Mhm.
actually think it's more painful because of the fact that it's the death of a dream and we expect dreams to come true. Whereas like with human beings, like we know everyone's gonna die. So like when
Yeah.
a human dies, it just confirms that the thing that you knew was happening all along. But when a dream dies, it like rocks your ability to like trust yourself. I mean, it's really bad. So, you know, to me, like a thing that would be driving the divorce rate is a thing to avoid at all costs, because of my views of divorce as a former divorce attorney and a coach that helps people rebuild their lives after divorce. And um, so, yeah. And I mean, I guess casual sex, the attitudes about casual sex between Africans and African Americans are very different. African Americans is like very like in the music, it's no big deal. It's oh my God, so that's just great. And then in African culture, and I do think that things are changing because American culture is so influential, but
Mhm.
it's like you don't do that. Like you have sex with your husband, you get married, like you don't just sleep with men, like you don't let people just touch you. You're not even supposed to be seen with a man if he's not family or he's not trying to become family. And if he's trying to become family, he needs to go talk to your dad about that. Like, so it's just
Yeah.
different. But yeah, I think the legacy of slavery and maybe even like a resentment and hostility between all these Africans, like they know where they're from. I go back to a deed of sale and so and then to like have that kind of feeling of inferiority and then meet in an interaction and you're met with judgment, you know, like I just so anyway, all that like Africans don't like African Americans don't like Africans. And I have African friends who would talk about, coming to America and getting called like, you know, ape or African booty scratcher or and then even in romantic relationships, like I've dated black, white, Latino, briefly Indian, not doing that again. I've been on a couple dates with like a Japanese guy. Pretty sure I wouldn't do that again either. But the only romantic partners who've made like overtly racist statements have been African American men. Like I've been called an ugly African bitch. I've been like only the African American guys are the ones talking shit. And I'm like, you know, someone like me, like a white guy who's gonna date someone like me, isn't gonna be racist. Like I'm too vocal. I'm too, like, like a racist white guy, like he might try to have sex, but he's not gonna try and date me. Um, so I think that there's like a little bit of an automatic filtration, but yeah, I say all of the things I say to say like I interpret it, especially with what I do now through the lens of like my understanding of human psychology and like that those feelings of shame like you project, and
Mhm.
like well I feel shame, so I'm gonna make you feel shame. And so which when it comes to dating, people will try and set me up and I'm like, they're like, what kind of guys? And I'm like, I don't know that I really have a type because I don't see myself as fitting in a nice, neat box.
Do you have trouble dating? I'm going to go back a little bit here. You're an incredibly accomplished person.
Thank you.
So much so that I was talking to David about, he's like, are you excited about your interview? I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. And I'm intimidated as hell.
Oh,
And he's like, why? It's Diana. And I'm like, she's so accomplished. Like, she's so smart and like done all these things. And here I am back at school.
I mean, yeah, to be a freaking counselor, which is like the world, you know. So
Yeah. Well, that's a whole another story. But like, I mean, you're a lawyer. You have your own business. You're out doing your life coach thing. You've done so many things,
yeah.
and you're just so educated and driven and ambitious. And is that? Do you find that other men are very intimidated by all of that and just kind of like back away from you?
So I have learned that um it's like you just need to know who your customer is. It's like if Ferrari is trying to sell cars in low income neighborhoods, we're not going to sell very many cars. And, with Black women, the expectation is that you'll be perpetually manless and, or like in some struggle situation, where you're with a guy that's like on a couch and, like doesn't have a car and is cheating on you while you're at work to pay the bills. And so, like, for a long time I just listened to really bad advice because I didn't realize that the people I was speaking to like had expectations based on their beliefs about Black women and not so much about me. Now I know like the type of guy who's going to date me is going to be someone who's even more successful, even more, like that. And the problem is with those guys, all the freaking Natashas are trying to get with them too. So I got to compete with the Eastern Europeans, which is not easy work. Okay. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have known to like, you need to be setting your sight on like the whales, of the, because like those are the only guys that are going to date you. And, but now I'm at, the call I got a minute ago with the guy I'm about to work out, multimillionaire, like, who I've been like, so we're about to go to the gym. And, but I didn't know like that I should be so I was like trying to like date, you know, the guys that were, what I thought I should be going for. And just like getting cheated on and being put in situationships and just being embarrassed, And now I understand that like a a good man is not going to try and get a woman to commit to him if he knows that he has nothing to offer her. Like, and things are different when like you're in your teens and super young, but like, I'm old. Like I'm for a woman, like I'm not in my early 20s. Like,
You're not even 40 yet.
yes, but like, okay, historically, like unmarried women at my age were called spinsters,
Yeah.
like, so,
Yeah.
like if I get married tomorrow, I'm like a textbook old bride, like, which
Yeah.
is triggering. Like, there's no such thing as an old husband. There's no like spinster equivalent for men, but
Yeah.
another topic for another day. So, I, yeah, I just realized that like the demographic that would commit to me, date me, like take me out is like the Ferrari demographic. And so, but like it just there's fewer of those guys and there's a lot of women, and a bunch of women from Eastern Europe who also want those guys. So it just means like, I just gotta have more game.
Yeah.
So it's been a learning curve, but I figured it out. Uh, but if I didn't, um, you know, I, because it was like when I say figured it out, I had to lose weight. I had to like learn different things. I had to like become more feminine. I had to make a bunch of changes. Like I couldn't
Uh-huh.
just, people like, oh, like the right guy will love you for you. Not true. Not true. Like it's the year of our Lord 2024 and we got Pornhub. Not true. Like,
Well, not in Texas anymore.
not Pornhub anymore?
It's blocked. Well, because Texas Congress
Mhm.
wants them to put an age restriction on it, so they don't have access to it anymore. They blocked it. You can't
Oh, I didn't even know.
all of the yeah. If you go to the sites, you can't get into any of them.
Wow. I mean, I haven't, yeah. That shows what I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
David came home and told me, and we were laughing about that. And I'm like, they just shot themselves in the foot, and they don't even realize it.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't even know. Well, okay. Well, you know what I mean? But like we got internet pornography, we got
yeah.
virtual chat. I mean, so my ex was a sex addict and ooh, I think I just got an Amazon delivery. Yes. And there was this one which I'm like, yes, it's Amazon. Um, hey babe. Um, so there's just one night where I haven't said his name, I haven't said anything identifying. Um, but I woke up to go to the bathroom. He was in the living room, and for what it's worth, we lived together. He was white. He had like some website with all these webcams, all these naked girls doing all kinds of different things. And he had been masturbating for so long. His penis was, I mean, it looked so raw and red. I couldn't even be mad. I was like sad for him because I was like, this looks involuntary. Like it doesn't even look like he was having fun. Like he was. Anyway, when you get to the sex addiction, like I said, buckle up because you're gonna hear some stuff that'll make you like, whoa. He would sometimes go to his like SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, like meetings online. And, like just, he'd have it on the computer and I'd be on the couch and, said over here. And I'm like, oof, to the window, to the wall. Like, I'm like, the ingenuity. Okay. Like, I just feel like we could solve peace in the Middle East if like the addicts would just use all the energy that goes into their addiction to like heal the world. They could solve
Yeah.
all the problems,
Yeah.
all of them. Because ain't nobody more resourceful than an addict. That's all I have to say. They will figure it out.
Yes.
No
Or
wall.
they, yeah.
How to
They
climb.
will.
Ooh, they will find a way.
Yeah. I
Solutions
want
on.
to thank you for doing this. I really,
Yeah.
really do appreciate it. This has been a really great conversation. I don't
Yeah.
want to hold you up any longer because it's been over an hour.
I know, and it flew by. But I hope this is helpful, and I hope that it. And feel free to share it, or I don't know, like what, and I'll email you the recording. Um, and yeah, like I to the teacher, I don't know whose idea it was for this to happen, but I love it, and I hope that like the people in your class like took the assignment seriously because it
I
does.
think I have a really good class. I can tell. And it's like all different ages, all different ethnicities. We have some really good conversations. I really like that. That's what I found like in my classes. I'm like one of the older people, so I do bring a little bit of like perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's interesting hearing all of these stories and getting to talk to people about their lived experiences, and it makes me really excited for my career.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, so what demographic are you thinking about working with?
I'm not, when I came into this, I came open,
Okay.
completely open. And I decided I'm not deciding my methodology. I am not deciding my demographic because I want to do so much.
What do you want to do?
Well, I was talking about going into sex therapy.
Oh,
And,
girl.
and then David is like,
The
I
money.
don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable for that.
Why not?
Yeah. He just doesn't. He's like,
Oh,
I don't
David
want you
doesn't
to
feel
do.
comfortable?
Yes, which I
Jealous?
thought was, yeah, not jealous. He was like, if you go and you're inundated with that every single day, that could negatively affect our sex life
Probably
and
not.
our
Probably
intimacy.
good ideas.
So, and I was like, well, I'll consider it. It's on the back burner, but it's
Yeah.
there. But with my experience with my kids and my husband and bipolar and mental illness, there's so family therapy, there's adolescent, like there's a lot that I want to do. And I
Let me rephrase. Um, think about what you think you could be willing to listen to a lot, because um, like sometimes like things that you've lived you like don't want to talk about. And then sometimes things that you lived are all you want to talk about. And then sometimes you want the freedom to like, maybe do this for a couple years and then do that for a couple years. And but
I think that's where I'm at. Like
mhm.
I want a little bit of everything. But when we were trudging through it with Ryan and institutionalizing her and in and out, the most pivotal moment for me was the first time I walked into um a facility and they were having a family group session, and it was like a bunch of families. And this is like day 2. She's been there. This is her second day there. Walking in, it was like a deer in headlights. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to feel because I was feeling so many different things. And I saw that with so many other parents and nobody said, you're okay. She's here. If somebody had just said to me, she's here, she's safe, we're going to watch over her 24/7, go home and take a nap.
Yeah. 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 You've earned it.
Yeah, it would have changed my whole world
Yeah.
because I was so scared at that point. And I saw that in every other parent that was there.
Mhm.
And so I want to be there for them in that moment. That's where really I want to be, is like, the parents that are first experiencing this, the kids that are first,
Yeah.
getting their first hospitalizations and learning all the ropes. That for me is where I really want to be. But there's so much to be interested in and excited about that I don't want to limit myself yet.
So
So
if
I've
you
gone
want,
into this,
if
I've
you want like
open mind.
a style experience, then my suggestion would be couples therapy, and just also have like, with specialty in um couples who are parenting, whether it's co-parenting or married or, whatever, children
Yeah,
with special needs, including mental
yeah,
health.
yeah,
And that way, because if you're dealing with couples, you're going to get all of it
yeah.
with like exclamation points, all of it. Couples are crazy. And like people think that like they're the craziest one. Like every couple thinks that they're the, I'm like, no, you're not the wildest ones. Like you're probably, no. But are you like the Gottman Institute? Have you heard of that? Have you looked at any of their stuff?
I'm reading. I've just started reading all his books, so I'm taking this. I'm actually decided to take the summer off from school,
Okay.
and I'm building my reading list. And I just picked up a bunch of his books, like Fight Right, and then seven principles and stuff. And
Have you done ten principles of effective couples therapy?
I no, I haven't gotten there. I think that's on my reading list too.
If you
But
read that book and it doesn't make you want to run the other way, then think about couples therapy. Because I think there's enough good stuff in that book that will deter those who have no business helping couples. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, if I were to become an LPC, I would for sure do couples therapy.
yeah,
And like wanting to be a Gottman certified therapist is like one of the things that's making me think like, do I wanna? But I'm like, I don't want to take any more tests, and I have another license I got to keep up with. I don't want to do all that shit. Um, and even like because I'm not licensed, I can like, oh, I don't do couples, sorry, because they're crazy. But but then I'm like, oh, but sometimes with some of my clients, I'm like, if I could just get you and your husband together and we could talk about this together, I just would really like that, Then I'm like, no, I'm not a couples therapist. I'm not. Um,
hold on one second. All right,
it's
it's one of
okay,
my kids.
of course. It never stops. Anyway, but yeah, I'll let you go. I'll send you the recording. And
Okay,
but yeah, like I said, if everything appeals to you, then read 10 principles of a couple effective couples therapy. Oh, and then oh my God, Cloud and Townsend, have you read any of their books?
I've read so many things I don't even know what I've read.
Okay, no,
Like
you'd remember
seriously,
these.
I've lost track.
So they wrote Boundaries. So it's John Cloud or Henry Cloud. No, I think it's John Cloud and Henry Townsend. Either way, Cloud and Townsend. Those are the last two names. Oh my God.
Okay,
It's literally right here. Boundaries. So it's Henry Cloud and John Townsend. And they're I think they're PsyD. I mean it's Dr. Henry Cloud, Dr. John Townsend. Yeah, they're PsyD. Um, so and I'm LPC. Um, anyway, but they wrote Boundaries, but they've written so many books on relationships, but Boundaries and Our Mothers Ourselves. It's all about the impact of the mother, like developmentally. And they come up with like these six categories of moms and then go into like the developmental issues that people have, like the phantom mom, the one who's like either physically or emotionally unavailable. Like the people who have that type of mothering experience tend to develop like anxiety, addictions, depression. And so anyway, it's really fascinating because talking about people's mothers is like everyone's very quick to be like, she did the best she could. Did my mom was trying? Like nobody wants to, like people will talk about their dad and like daddy issues, but like nobody wants to admit that their mom was less than perfect, including mothers, like I don't want to admit that my mother, because I'm a mother and I realize how hard it is, and I don't want to say that but like developmentally, the mom's role is so important and so misunderstood. And anyway, so I think that book would be another good one for just kind of giving you little gems to help you think like which direction you want to go in.
Yeah, no, I'm building my reading list, and I'm gonna read all summer.
Yes, that's
Because I need a break from school for a little bit so I don't burn out.
right.
So
Right. Well, if you want to just click use the link again, and I have a certificate. It's called the Feel Good Life Methodology. It's created by, her name's Isabel Tierney. She's a master's level therapist. She's been practicing for about 30 years. But it's a method for learning to control your nervous system. So controlling your stress level by controlling your inner world. And
mhm.
that's something that, it'll take a couple hours for me to walk you through all of it. So I couldn't do it all in one session, but whenever you start, doing your hours and supervise, it's something you can incorporate into your style of counseling.
Okay.
So
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah,
really do appreciate it. This is a really great conversation.
yeah. I
I've
wasn't.
learned a lot. I've got a lot to think about.
Oh, good, 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 good. And I'm excited for you and excited to see where you end up. And I do think that, like, I mean, I tell people all the time with therapists and with coaches, like, there's people who have the training and the information, and then there's people who have a gift. And I think you need both. Like, the amount of training that I've done to become a coach at this point is equal to or arguably greater than the amount of training I did to become an attorney. But I also like have pretty much always been someone that people went to for advice. And so,
Mhm.
and that's like, there's definitely like a gift. It's like, this is totally something I would do for free, um, because I've done it for free for like most of my life. But, like just having gift is enough. You need to know techniques, you need to know principles, you need to know, like, have frameworks and methods, and just understand like human nature and evolutionary psychology and neuroscience and all these things that like explain patterns and behaviors. Um, but without like the things that you've been through as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, as a, woman of color, as a whatever, like you wouldn't be as good as you're going to be, like, and there's something
Yeah.
about like that first time. Oh, I'm getting chills. Oh, getting chills. That first time, that you've been working with someone and they experience a breakthrough in an area of life where they're experiencing a lot of pain. You're like, oh my God, like everything I've been through, like I get to use it to help somebody. Like I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's an honor, it's a privilege. And so I just want you to be really excited about what's in store for you.
Yeah. I am. I'm so excited. That's why it's like I'm working full time. I'm going to school full time,
Oh my
and
God, the ghetto.
I have my own health. I have my own health issues, and I was like, no, I need to take the summer. I hate the idea of it. I
Mhm.
hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But I know that my body needs it to recharge,
Yeah. What
and
are
that
your
I
health
can hit the
issues?
books back in the fall. I have fibromyalgia and spinal arthritis,
Okay.
and it's been it's been a really it's been a struggle because my insurance is giving me trouble. So
Of course. Fibromyalgia. Um, Tell me more, like, what is fibromyalgia?
Um, there is a debate on whether or not it is a nervous system disorder or if it's an autoimmune disorder.
Mhm.
I personally think they're linked.
Is it pain
And it's
or
basically
inflammation? Like, what is the symptoms?
there's very little inflammation, but widespread chronic pain,
Okay, okay, okay.
and a lot of other things fall in with it: chronic fatigue, vitamin deficiencies. Most of us have many uh, autoimmune issues, which I also have.
Mhm.
But then I also just recently found out that I'm on the spectrum. So, and
Okay.
then that falls in line with all of that. So, Yeah.
which I think being on the spectrum. So on the spectrum, the book I would suggest looking into is called Energy Healing for Empaths. There's a lot of really good information in there. It's anyway, Energy Healing for Empaths. Just once you get into it, you'll be like, oh. And then for physical stuff, this book, it's called Heal Your Body by Louise
Mm.
Hay. So it talks about the metaphysical causes of physical symptoms. So like one of the I talk about universal laws in my coaching. One of the universal laws is the law of cause and effect. And it is that for all effects in this realm, in this dimension that we're in, there are causes. And there are known causes, there are unknown causes, but there are causes for any effect. And so this book talks about metaphysical causes for physical symptoms. So for pain, chronic pain, the metaphysical probable cause, there could be others, is guilt. Um, so guilt always seeks punishment, and an affirmation. I don't know if you've gotten into like the CBT um, stuff already, but an affirmation that you can use to kind of start reprogramming is I
Wait,
lovingly
you just
release.
broke up. Can you repeat that?
Mhm. Sorry.
You just broke up a little bit right there. I didn't hear what you said.
So the most likely metaphysical cause of chronic pain is guilt, because guilt
Uh-huh.
is punishment. And so, affirmations that you can use to reprogram any feelings of guilt that are manifesting as physical pain is I lovingly release the past. They are free and I am free. All is well in my heart now. But this is from a book called Heal Your Body. And I would highly recommend throwing it in the mix because it will also like help you come up with questions um, to ask as you're meeting with people and they're talking about different things that are happening in their bodies.
Okay.
Like if we were in a session, like if you weren't an LPC, whatever, like I wouldn't tell you about this book and I wouldn't tell you about that, but I would say, oh, da, 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 interesting. And then I would like come sideways somehow, redirect and somehow ask you about, you know, are you someone who ha- has issues with guilt? Are there feelings of, like, tell me, like, do you have any memories of feeling guilty as a child? And, like, or I'd be like, I want to talk for a minute about guilt. Is that something that you're doing? And so I would come at it that way instead of being like, there's this book and it's woo woo and it talks about metaphysical. Because, some people will like, they're like, oh my God, I think you're a witch. So,
Well, no, I firmly believe in the mind body connection. And I'm working, even though I'm working on my master's now, I'm considering my PsyD
Mhm.
afterwards. And I would really, this emerging field of neuro counseling really intrigues me on how, how your feelings and emotions affect your brain and vice versa. And that's something that's like playing in the back of my mind right now. That's like my long-term goal. But so that I'm reading everything that I can. I've like stacks of books, and like people are like, did you read this? And I'm like, I think so, because I'm horrible with like titles and names.
Mhm.
So it's like, you got to tell me a little bit, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um, yeah, I mean, I've read so much because I had to, but at some point you break down and you just cross over to the other side, the audiobook side, because with once you get into the audiobooks, it's so addictive because you can do other stuff while you're listening to your audiobook. Like I love
yeah,
the physical sensation of like a hard copy. I have tons of them. I'm like stacks of, but um with audiobooks, it's like driving, doing laundry, cleaning, whatever it is you're doing, you can
yeah,
have it playing
yeah.
and you can get through
I'm
so
in the grocery store.
yeah, yeah. And I asked for an Audible subscription for my Christmas present the year before last. And I mean, I, I can't, they give you like awards after you get through like a certain number. And it was like, I got like the marathoner and the high,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you're making me feel a little self-conscious, but I mean, it's such a great cheat code. But anyway, yeah. So I don't, do you have any type of like morning, mindfulness practice?
Yeah, I do. When I first like wake up, it's kind of like just a meditation. I do it several times throughout the day. It's just kind of like this self meditation
Mhm.
that, and I just like kind of reaffirm that, like whatever I need. Like with the chronic pain, I have to do a lot of it to keep myself going, or it's just it will snowball into depression. So it's, I feel good today. I'm gonna, get up and, whatever I need to accomplish, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. So it's like I tailor it every day to whatever I need. But yeah, there's a lot of that. I do a lot of praying. So yeah, I use a lot of different techniques to try to get me through the days. So
Um, so incorporate something for just developing an awareness of any guilt, and um whatever works for you for letting it go. So I have a meditation on my YouTube channel, but you don't have to go to my YouTube to find it. It's Ho'oponopono. It's an ancient Hawaiian mantra, and it was originally used by the five kingdoms to like resolve disputes. And but now it's like something you can use to like let go of just negative energy, negative sentiments within your body. And so I have a video where I talk about how to use it. It's in my gratitude challenge playlist on day 3.
mhm,
But so if you listen to that, you can get the full guided meditation. And if you want to just like look it up on YouTube on your own, find others. But it's basically like the mantra is I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you think about the person, place, or thing, and you see them in your mind and you repeat that, and you
mhm.
I tell my people to visualize like a cord like going from their navel to that person, and just whenever they are ready to cut the cord in their mind. But you can also like visualize the cord evaporating into light, or
Yeah.
visualize it all disappear, like whatever helps you. But if you like you said you believe in the mind body connection, I'm a huge believer in it too. um so just, yeah, scan and work on releasing guilt and see if that doesn't help with what's happening physically.
Okay. I will.
So,
I will.
okay. Nice.
Okay.
All right. Well, I will, whenever this is done, I'm going to run to the gym, but I will get you the recording this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're so welcome.
You go have a good time at the gym.
Thanks. Bye.